We came up with a functional movement screen over 20 years ago. And the one thing that people don't get is that we've been trying to change the functional movement screen for 20 years, right, Gray? I mean, we've always felt that if there was something new or something better, that we would embrace that. And we're ready to introduce some changes. And one of the things that we've been really looking at based off the Y balance and just feedback and data and a lot of the research that's out there, and I think the Y balance is probably the one thing that kind of really pushed us in this direction, is adding an ankle mobility component to the FMS. And what we've done is we're adding this ankle mobility clearing into the FMS as part of the lunge. We're making it a clearing test. We've been working on this a few years now. This didn't just come about. But you walked in one day and said, let's do it tandem, and I think that's what put us over the hump.
It did, because let's be honest, if you have any clinical training whatsoever, you realize a goniometer and open and closed chain ankle testing is the quickest way to find an ankle mobility problem. But what about an ankle screen? It should be convenient, it should be consistent, and anybody should be able to do it. So evaluating an ankle is one thing, but screening an ankle that should be evaluated or is a limiting factor is another. And a lot of people think that coming to the ankle and adding it into the screen is an afterthought, but it's not, because if you'll go back in history and look at every corrective for the squat, hurdle, step, or lunge, we led with ankle mobility. And I think a lot of people got so excited about fixing a global pattern that they didn't realize it was implied in the journey to reclaim your squat, hurdle, step, and lunge that the ankle little mobility drill was put there, not as lip service. We considered it vital, but if it's that vital, we should even screen it on the front end. And if you have the capability or technology to measure it, that's one thing. But by adding that, what we do is consolidate a central problem in the squat, hurdle, step, and lunge back to ankle. The cool thing is, at the same time we were really emphasizing the ankle even more, so much research emerged on ACLs and ankle, and low back pain and ankle mobility, fall risk and ankle mobility, and it's been right there under our nose. We know how to create ankle mobility, but if you don't realize that that's the first domino, it's really easy to think, well, they just can't squat, or it's a core problem. So no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There is an ankle clearing exam in the FMS, and what it says is, if this is a problem, then everything on your feet is subordinate to that problem, both in screening and in corrective. So
what we're doing is, if there's pain, obviously that's the whole big point of a clearing test, is to determine if there's pain, but also the mobility piece. So really, if adding this ankle mobility test or screen into the entire FMS, we're making that a priority. So actually, if you fail that mobility part, you're gonna be getting ankle activities no matter what.
The beauty in the ankle clearing exam is, number one, if you have a painful ankle, that will let us know right away if none of the other tests see it. But more importantly, if you have a dysfunctional ankle, then many other movement pattern dysfunctions grow out of that. And if we have that tight little feedback loop, then the first time I screen your ankle, it's on you and your ankle, but the second time I screen it, it's on me and my corrective acumen, philosophy, and practicality.
So, as you said, Greg, the ankle was already baked into the cake, so to speak. I mean, we already had it in there as far as a corrective. And logically speaking, the way the whole movement screen works is, if you pass a squat, then maybe you don't need the ankle. And I think we probably made some assumptions early on that we were picking up an ankle with the squat, the hurdle, step, and lunge. But as we kind of got more experience and got more data, we realized that we weren't. So we knew we had to add that in. So now this is going to let us be even more efficient. By adding this little ankle test in, may take a little time on the front end, but by clearing the ankle, you don't have to worry about too many ankle drills. The next thing is rotary stability. Yeah. So the rotary stability test, Gray, you've fielded a lot of questions, so have I, and typically this is a big question we get. Can anybody pass this rotary stability test? And we always felt the rotary stability was a huge, valuable piece in how the neurodevelopmental and how we set up the whole FMS anyway. And you've been talking about doing some rotary stability a long time. But how we're changing is probably not the way most people think we're changing it. We're keeping in that unilateral or same side flexion extension.
You know, the first opportunity for me to really disclose what I was looking for in the rotary stability test came in a discussion with Stu McGill and I before we both went out on stage at Stanford. And Stu said, you know, every one of your other patterns seems very consistent, but in the rotary stability, to get a 3, you do this, but then you change the pattern and do this. And I knew exactly where he was going. And I said, we're not screening you for a crawling pattern or primitive pattern. This is simply an aggressive perturbation, a balance challenge on one base, and then we give you a slightly better base and see if you can handle that. But to Stu's point, changing the pattern may also have allowed us to see way more 2s in this test than 3s and 1s. And one of our best tests from a screening perspective is the lunge. Here's why. If you do it perfectly, you get a 3. If you do it imperfectly, you get a 2. And if you cannot do it, you get a 1. What if we took that same elegance in the lunge? Because even in the squat, we add that heel lift. We do something. So we take that elegance in the lunge and bring it back to rotary stability and say, do a unilateral perfectly, you get a 3. Do a unilateral imperfectly, you get a 2. Inability to do the unilateral or a fall while attempting the unilateral, loss of balance, gets you a 1. And so we said, let's look at this. And when we did, it only made things better, because here's where I think the elegance of this is so important. We had a lot of people, maybe if they didn't have a really tight screener or if the test just wasn't sensitive enough, we had a lot of people who had rotary stability problems get a set of 2s, move on into a push-up and get a 1, and then we just bang away on that push-up, not realizing that's a core sequence, not a strength problem. And when we started looking at rotary stability, we said, if the test doesn't get much better, if we don't change anything, but we get greater opportunity to see asymmetry and greater opportunity to see a low score that is deserved, maybe a lot of these people won't be frustrated to work on their push-up when all they need is a week and a half of rolling, and then they don't even need to fix their push-up. Fixing their rotary stability, fix their push-up. So that's one where we looked at each test we had and looked at the distribution, the bell curve, and what we caught, and it was better. And it's been better for 2.5 to 3 years, and we haven't said a word. That's how confident we are in this change. This wasn't something we thought about last month and inserted this month. This goes back probably 3 years, if not more, realizing that something could be better, but until it demonstrates itself as best, we will not make good the enemy of great or something like that.
Yeah, the assumption too often, some of the things that we put out there is just that we get home, or you get out in the woods in the deer stand, and you come back and we throw it out there on the internet or put it in a course, and that's not the way we operate. We've got a great team of people, Dr. Kyle Kiesel, Phil Plisky, Kyle Matzel, Jenna, a lot of people up there that we bounce things off of. And this rotary stability and ankle, for that matter, have been things we've been looking to push out for, I would say, 5 or 6 years.
Everything we've done from a corrective path has been put in the hands of what most people would call a novice, and demonstrated it was equally, if not more successful and easier to implement than some of the great things we've already done. So if our information can be consumed by more professionals at a success level and embraced by more participants, clients, athletes, patients at a success level, why wouldn't we do it? You can always get more specific and complex, but anytime we can make it more simple, I think that's elegant.
Yeah, I mean, no question. I think the one thing you hit on with the rotary stability test in particular is most people assume we want to get people more 3s by changing the test. The problem was we had more 2s. Everybody was getting 2s. We really needed more 1s because people, as you said, were getting push-up correctives when they really need rotary stability correctives. And when Dr. Kyle Kiesel and his team, the researchers, went through and they started unpacking this new way of doing rotary stability, the distribution lined up. We got more 1s, which means they're on the correct pathway now much more often. So that was probably the bigger problem because, Gray, you've always looked at it. It's what are we pushing you to do that's going to fix you? And if the screen's not pushing you in the right direction, it's the screen's problem. Yes. And I think, or it's the tester's problem, maybe not doing the screen right. So that's what we always have to tweak. And if we can't tweak that, then we're just stagnant.
one more elegant way to look at it is, now that we're screening the ankle and now we want everybody to look at the ankle tighter, when you don't have an ankle problem, but you do, say, have a hurdle step problem or lunge problem, a more sensitive rotary stability may clean that up. So imagine if we had given you a 2 on rotary stability, your ankle's clean, but you got a 1 on one side of your lunge and a 1 on one side of your hurdle step. You can bang away at your core control on your feet, and you could possibly get better, but some people won't. If we take it right back to off your feet core control. So once again, whether it's we want to catch you before you start doing high threshold push-ups, or we want to normalize your balance before you're on your feet, either way, there's no reason not to do this. And like I said, our best instructors have looked at this test and gone into it and said, it simply gives me greater operational latitude to get you at the right place at the right time. And the cool thing is, if you do the right thing, this test shows you the change quicker. It magnifies the problem in a way where we can all achieve feedback from it. And that's the most important thing about the second screen.
Yeah.
Can you get feedback from what you did? And if you didn't make a change, then make sure you screened right, make sure you did the corrective right, give them more time in some cases, or call an audible and go at it a different way. But that's rarely what you have to do if you do everything else right.
Yeah, so these 2 little changes aren't going to really increase the amount of time it takes. And again, we're trying to give you a more precise screen, and we're always going to try to do that. So you can dial in and be very precise, be a sniper on the back end. And if you're doing a better job on the back end, that's where you're going to save the time.
Yeah, I just want everybody to try these. If you have a workout partner, a colleague, or something like that, try everything we're saying on the right movement pattern, on somebody who trusts you and is willing to give you some feedback. And I think you'll see that we made these decisions for efficiency and clarity. And I think if you implement them, you will appreciate them more than if you just discuss them to no end. So
yeah, so really excited about these changes. Go test it out. If you want to know a little bit more detail about the research and the data collection process, Dr. Kyle Kiesel did a short video, so check that out.